it's so easy to give up on this because it's so challenging. And there's so many other ways to make money that I could live a lot easier lifestyle.
Yeah.
But
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Ground Up with Esther. And today's episode, and if you have been following my account on Instagram, you're going to see that I have been involved in a very sweet community and I have been doing very exciting and fun things. And today's episode, it's with someone that has been teaching me a lot and I have been learning a lot from, and I have enjoyed his community, his presence in my life since the day I met him. And his name is Brandon Gaydorus. So I will have him introduce himself and tell us more about who he is, and then we will jump into the conversation.
it's funny. You asked me before we got started, you said, "Are you nervous?" I said, I'm actually excited because my mentor, one time he told a group of us, he said, "I'm so sick of people trying to figure out their purpose. They come up to me, they say, 'Hey, how do I figure out my purpose? How do I find my purpose?'" And he's like, "Listen, you got one purpose on this earth, and that's to leave it better than when you got here." And whenever I have an opportunity to get on a podcast like this, I get excited for the opportunity to hopefully plant seeds in the minds of people who can take whatever we talk about today and learn and grow and hopefully change other lives.
And that's true because that's what I want to do with the podcast as well, from the ground up, to change other people's lives, to start whatever it is that they want to start in their lives. So it's great to have you here and have that same mindset, even with something that you share online all the time. It's like growing together, the hashtag. And I can relate to that because when I started, that's what my thought was. Okay, I got to use the hashtags, like growing together. And it's just been great to have you here and to learn from you. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about you, who you are. And one of the topics I want to touch on during this year, 2026, is the topic of identity. And I have interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs and they say a lot of great things. But one of the things that I want to learn from them and from you is the aspect of identity. So tell us who you are and what your company is about, and who was Brandon before you started Warm Heart Life.
Yeah, I've been actually thinking about that question quite a bit. Like, who is Brandon Gaydorus? Like, how do you describe that? What is that actually? When someone asks you that question, what are they trying to actually figure out? And I don't really know. I think I'm still trying to figure out who I am and the person that I'm called to be. And so when I was younger, I really liked to play golf. I really liked to play basketball, and I would try so hard to be really good at those sports. And I just was not the best. But I learned how to actually dive into something that you're curious about and actually work towards something. And so as I started getting older, you start to have to figure things out because you got to make a living, figure out what you're supposed to do after people tell you what to do for most of your life. And so I started in the world of fitness and specifically for golfers. And when I started diving deep into it, I was like, I can be the best at this. I knew it because I saw the best, and I was like, I can be the best at this. And the biggest thing that I learned from when I was younger to my first career was when you learn from the people who are the best, you got a chance of being the best. When I played golf, I would a lot of times learn from my dad, and he was a decent golfer, but he was not a professional teacher. And so I respect him because I wouldn't have gotten into the game if it wasn't for him, for everything that he did for me and all that. But I realized that if you want to be the best, it's important to go learn from the best. So I started learning from some of the most successful people in my industry. And at 26 years old, I got nominated top 50 in America. What I did, I was the youngest person on the list, and it was the loneliest day of my life.
Really? How come?
Well, I was sitting there in a room of about 200 people. That morning I heard the news. I'd worked my whole life to working career to be able to be nominated on that list. It was a dream of mine. And then that night I was in a room with 200 people and nobody knew what I had worked so hard for the last 9 years leading up to that. And I just said, if this is what I'm chasing after, if this is what I've put all these years, all these uncomfortable situations, sacrificed a lot of travel, sacrificed a lot of doing internships for free. Like if I sacrificed all that for that, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And so it was a weird feeling because I was at the top of my career. And so I said, I'm not going to leave my career, but I'm going to take a lot of time to think about if I were to make a switch, if I were to go 10 years hard at something that I was really passionate about, what would that look like? And I didn't know. I just knew I wanted to climb a mountain with a massive group of people. So whenever you see growing together, that's why, because that's how Warm Heart Life started. It started with a vision to grow with people instead of just climbing another mountain and making it to the top and feeling alone. And so my whole goal with Warm Heart Life has been to enjoy the moments along the way. Like this right here. This was a vision before I even knew what I wanted to do with Warm Heart Life. Having conversations with like-minded people who want to grow and who want to make an impact on this world. So when you think about, okay, who is Brandon Gaydorus? I'm someone who's trying to figure things out. I'm trying to figure things out with my relationships. I'm trying to figure things out with my business. I'm someone who's not perfect and someone who's wants to continue to figure out how to get better as a man, get better as a business owner, get better as a friend. I'm now an uncle. So, uh,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. And I got a long way to go. It's easy to look at the successes of someone and admire it, but it's another thing to look at the things that that person wants to work on and respect it.
Mm.
And so that was an interesting question that you asked there.
No, I'm glad because it's funny because when I interview people that I know have been on a lot of podcasts, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to ask them next? And I want to ask questions, like you said, that can help other people, not just me. And the point that you made about growing with other people and bringing people to climb that mountain together with you, it's vital because we can't do life alone. That's something I always say. We're not called to do life alone. We can't get places alone. And when we try to do it alone, that's when we fail. So I appreciate that about you and what you're doing in your community. So thank you about that.
Well, that means a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I like that. I have another question, which I think you maybe answered already, but the question was, at what point do you realize that you wanted to shift from fitness into the speaking world?
So around the end of the decade, right? That was that moment where I was sitting in the room of 200 people. That's when I kind of like knew.
Mhm.
Um, but when I officially made the decision in my head, it was in the summer of 2021, and I went to this business event, and it was called the 10X Exit. So 10 like the number, and then X like the letter. And so at this seminar, they had us thinking about the exit of our business. And I said, if they're going to get me thinking about the exit of my business, I might as well just take this to a level of big thinking that can get me excited to pursue something. And so I said, let me break down $1 billion. Like I've always thought $1 billion is a cool number. Let me start breaking that number down and see if I can figure out something that excites me that we could potentially build towards. And so I broke down $1 billion. I didn't have a product, I didn't have a service, but I had, for about 2 years leading up to that point, I had mentored high school and college students. They didn't pay me. I just genuinely wanted to figure out how to help the younger generation. The pandemic helped
Mm.
because I had more time to be able to do that, but I was even kind of doing that before the pandemic. And so I said, if I can break down this number, maybe an idea can come into my mind. And somehow I got to 10,000 and 100,000. If you combine those two together, you get $1 billion. And I was like, hey, if we can get 100,000 students paying 10,000 a year, and we can break those 100,000 students into 10 different campuses, we can potentially create the most impactful education system in the entire country where we can reduce debt. We can encourage the students to start making money as soon as they get there. And then we can focus on hands-on learning. So that was planted in my mind that day. And for 4.5 years, I've been chasing that vision. I sat down at dinner with a friend that I had met that weekend, and I explained to her my $1 billion plan on a napkin.
Mm. Yeah, I think I've seen that story on Instagram.
Yeah.
And you know who reminded me of that? Our friend who shared he's a chef. Chef, what's his name? Ivan, Chef Ivan,
Oh, okay.
Ivan.
Yeah.
Because he said the same thing that he drew his vision for what he has now on a napkin. And I thought of you when he shared that because, sometimes you think let me just write this down here and it can be great things, big things that then you can put into.
Yeah. That was such an interesting weekend for me. I got there a day early. I was going down on the elevator, and this couple said, "Hey, we remember you. Come join us for dinner." So I joined them for dinner, and there's like 15 people at this table. I sit next to this girl, her name's Alexa, and it gets time for the tab, and she forgot her wallet. And so I said, "Oh, I got you. Like, don't worry about it." And she's like, "I am getting you back tomorrow." She's like, "I am getting you back tomorrow." I didn't think anything of it. And so that next day, I just went out to dinner by myself, and she was at the same place. And then she came right up next to me after she finished, and we sat there for probably an hour. And I just explained to her the whole business model on the napkin.
How
Yeah.
it happens, right? That's nice. Yeah. And throughout this change, right? Because like you're sharing how you change because of that moment in your life. What was the hardest thing to let go of that Brandon that was to enter into this new version of you?
I was good at what I did. I
Mm.
think that was really hard, but I kept doing that for 2 more years. It's not like I just quit it, but so I was giving up something that I had worked so hard for. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Mhm.
And with that said, though, I think one of the hardest parts about that kind of transition was I started doing two businesses, and for 2 years, I exhausted myself. I got to the point where I was like, if I keep doing both businesses, I don't think I'm going to make it till 35.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I was about to turn 30, and I wrote this book, The Care Principle, Creating a Life That Makes a Difference to the World Under 30. And I wanted to do one last thing to really try and make that difference to the world under 30. So I had this conference called the A to B Con #2, and we blew it up. We went from maybe 100-ish people the year prior to we sold 238 tickets. Yeah. And I was interviewing one of the highest paid comedians ever. So, yeah. So it was kind of my last chance to really go for it. And we had this picture of me and the guy I interviewed, Terry Fader, and then a couple hundred people in the back with their hands up. And I put that picture on the internet, and I got so much love. People started looking at me totally differently. 2 weeks later, I told my fitness clients, I said, I'm gonna do 2 more weeks.
Mm.
I'm gonna train you all 2 more weeks, and then I'm gonna pursue my bucket list business full time. Yeah. But I was actually making more money with Warm Heart Life.
Okay.
Not profit, but more money. And so it was a sign. It was like, okay, it's now or never. And so with Warm Heart Life, I've sacrificed a lot of profit to be able to accumulate the knowledge that can impact the masses, to be able to develop the connections that can allow us to really make this vision happen. And so that was one of the hardest things, was sacrificing a lot of revenue. And I still am. Like, I know,
Yeah.
I understand money, and I understand I can make a lot of it. But when you're working on creating the most impactful education system, there has to be a lot of knowledge.
Mm.
And so I've just accepted that there's a process, right?
Yeah.
And it was very similar in the fitness industry. For 3 years, I think I made $3,000. When I got out of college, people started paying up to $150 an hour to work with me. I didn't get all the 150, but people were starting to pay that to work with me.
Wow.
And so that's when I really started to see, okay, maybe if you really put a lot of effort into accumulate the knowledge, you can start to accelerate very fast. And I'm starting to see this with public speaking, where I don't think there's many better teachers in the world than me.
Mm.
And if, I'm actually really struggling to find someone who's better. I'm trying to, like, I really want to find someone who's better at teaching speaking than me,
Mm.
because I want to go learn from that person.
Yeah.
And so this last couple months has been a little weird for me, because my mentor, who I idolize, who I've seen him get up to $3 million contracts. He traveled around the world for 40 plus years speaking. He's like, Brandon, you're better than me. So that was kind of, like, wow,
Yeah.
now how do I get better from here?
Yeah.
And so I started studying a lot of comedians, and now I have a comedic repertoire, not only with the way that I speak, but the way that I teach. And so the best speakers in my mind, they're great entertainers. And so I've studied comedy, I perform it too. I've edited more videos than probably any person who teaches speaking at the level that I do. And we've taught these speaker schools all around the country. So it's just getting to the point where, I'm trying to figure out, if I am the best, then there's a big issue. Not enough people know about me.
Wow.
And so in the fitness world, when I started to feel the way that I am now with my skill set, I had to figure out how to get attention. So I wrote a book, and then all of a sudden I get nominated Golf Digest Top 50 Trainers in America. Then they say, Brandon, can you collaborate with us for an article? I collaborate with them for an article. All of a sudden people start driving up to an hour in to work with me, right? And this is as a personal trainer, where they're seeing you quite often. And so with the public speaking side, we are very close. We are very, very close to this thing just taking off. But there's work that needs to be put in from a marketing perspective. I got to continue to get better. I got to continue to get the right people around me, and we're continuing to step forward. But that's what it was like transitioning from there, and then this is what it's
Yeah.
this is where it's at now. And both careers, very similar processes to the progression of getting better.
That's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
excited to hear that, and I'm excited to see where it goes,
Yeah.
right? Because thank God, I'm so grateful I found you and everybody in there. Yeah, I'm learning so much. It's just amazing. I love it. And since you spoke about the fact of, sacrificing profit versus to get more knowledge, this is where I want to go into the question of success, because a lot of people start businesses or chasing an idea because of the profit or the money, right? And in your case, you're sacrificing that. How do you define success now in your life and versus before when you started this journey?
That's a great question. So before I started this journey, I think I just wanted to give business a shot. I was so curious about it. I didn't know if it was possible or not. I just wanted to give it a try. And then when it worked out in the fitness industry, I just thought there was so much more that I could do. I just thought there was so much more that I could do. And now that I've been pursuing this, we've had a lot of cool things happen. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I got two things I want to do like the rest of my life. I got two goals. I want to do everything in my power to give this goal that I've been voicing out for 4.5 years a chance. It's so easy to it's so easy to give up on this because it's so challenging. And there's so many other ways to make money that I could live a lot easier lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I've thought so much about the impact, the fulfillment, the excitement from creating these universities. And I want to give it a shot, you
Yeah.
know? And then the second thing is I want to get married and raise a family. And so those are the two things that I want, like the rest of my life, those are the goals that I have. And it may be kind of simple, but I'm a simple man, you know?
Hmm.
I don't like overcomplicating things. I moved to a smaller place and I wanted to get rid of a lot of things. So,
Yeah. No, that's great. I think it's going to happen because you're going on the right direction and you started young in your 20s. And that's why they say if you want to build something, start in your 20s. And I think you're going on the right direction. And the other question I had, because you transitioned from that to public speaking, and now you want to do so many other things. What internal beliefs do you have to change inside yourself to be able to be at where you are right now? And maybe that goes back to your background, family. Yeah.
well, I think one thing that really helped me out internally was I just kind of was I used to mentor these high school and college students, and I would invite my mentor onto the calls to guest speak to them every once in a while, and he enjoyed it. It was during the pandemic time, so it was fun for him. And I said, "How do you balance work and life? Because I'm struggling." I said, "I'm struggling with this," and he said, "Figure out how you want to live, and then figure out how to pay for it." And his analogy was, listen, I would design my work schedule off of an 8-month calendar, and I would design all the seminars in that 8-month period. Then for 4 months, I would go out to Colorado and I would go ski. I would drink beer and teach people how to ski. And he had a blast. And so that was one of the first times where I really started thinking, okay, like, how do I actually want to live? Because all throughout my 20s, when I was a personal trainer, I was working 6 days a week for the most part. Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then I would try and cram 4, 5, 6 sessions in on Saturday morning.
Mhm.
And so I didn't really understand what it was like to have some freedom, like even for a couple days. So I took a lot of time to think about that in the beginning days. And I said, I would love to have a really busy schedule Monday and Tuesday to have some more freedom later in the week. And so now, if I don't want to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I don't have to. Now, just stating the obvious, pretty much every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I do work. But if I want to go teach a seminar on a Friday, Saturday, I can. If I want to take a speaking engagement on a Friday, I can. You know what I mean? And it wasn't always like that. If I want to just have a day where I could just go at my own pace, I can. I was absolutely exhausted on Friday. Exhausted. Like, you know, they have those whoop things. I was probably at like a 5%. Like, I was so exhausted on Friday. I had pretty much gone 13 days in a row of just nonstop.
Wow. Hmm.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to sleep in a little bit. I slept in a little bit, went to the gym, got some stuff at Target to clean my bathtub, got that looking better than it was. And I got to the office at 2 and then I left at 9. But having that morning to just breathe was incredible. And it
Mhm.
was a great day. And I didn't mind being there till 9 o'clock. But just kind of one of those things. It's like people think entrepreneurship is all like roses and butterflies, and
Mhm.
I don't ever remember taking a day off. Actually, I do remember it was Christmas Eve many years ago. I remember I did like nothing. I just spent time with family, and that was it. But other than that, I can barely ever remember a day where I didn't go for at least something that needed to be done.
Yeah.
Like people say, Brennan, how in the world did you write 5 books? And I said, I would put on my critical task, work on book, work on book, work on book. And then in a year or so, the book would be done. But these Sundays, if I didn't want to work all day, I would still work on the book for like 2 minutes. And that would keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Tiny habits, tiny little habits make a big impact. And where do you learn all of this from? That work ethic? Who inspired you to besides your mentor? Because you always speak about him.
Yeah.
Is there someone else in your life that inspire you?
I learned work ethic from my parents, specifically my father. When I was 4 or 5 years old, he decided to quit his career and he went back to school
Wow, okay.
so he could chase his dream. He loved financial advising, he loved investing. And so he went back to school, got his MBA, and became a financial advisor. But I remember him dropping me off at daycare, pre K, whatever it was, and then he would go to the university to
Hmm.
go take the class. And so when I got older, my parents were not big party people. Like they were not big social people. They both came from big families. So a lot of their friends were their brothers and sisters, right?
Hmm.
And so the weekends for them was we were home and my father, I'd go down to the basement and I'd see him studying and I'd see him studying and I'd see him studying and I'd see him studying. And so they say things are caught, not taught. And I definitely caught work ethic from my father. And then my mom was extremely reliable and disciplined.
Yeah.
And I learned that from her. When when she needed to show up, she would show up. I mean, just an incredible mother. What you would expect in a mother, but I mean, I can't give them enough credit for
Right.
that. So that's how I learned work ethic. And then as I got older, I started to just go to seminars and workshops, and I started to understand at a very young age if you put yourselves in rooms with people who are leveling up, you're going to start to figure out how to level up versus if you stay in your apartment and eat pizza and watch football all day. I'm not saying I don't do that. I had pizza today and I was watching football today, but I also made sure to show up for this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Even yesterday, my buddy wanted to go to SantaCon for his birthday. And a lot of people would say, oh, that's just a drinking day. That's just a party day. We had such a productive conversation on the train about business. You know what I mean? And so when you get around like minded people, you start to have these
Yeah.
breakthroughs that lead to the next thing and the next thing. For example, I think it's incredible that you keep showing up. You went to the speaker school, you signed up for the next one. You went to all 3 events that I was at last week, right?
Mhm.
And it's just one of those things when you keep getting in those rooms, you start paving the path in the
Mhm.
right direction towards where you want to go. And it may feel slow. You may question yourself. When is the money going to start coming in? I'm sick of looking in my bank account and there's not more than $100. Like these thoughts may go through your head, but when you keep getting in these rooms, you get into conversations with people that help give you the next step that you need to take. So there's a book, I forget what it's called, but maybe I'll think of it in a little bit. But it's basically like this young man is just curious about figuring out this treasure. And so The Alchemist. So there's a book called The Alchemist where this young man is just trying to figure this thing out. And he just goes to person to person to person. And each person he learns something that can help lead him to the next thing.
Mm.
And so that's why I'm such a big fan of getting in these rooms, because that's how I've learned a lot of the things that I've know now. And I want to get into a lot of rooms with good people,
Mhm.
but thankfully a lot of those rooms are kind of coming to me now. I don't have to travel as much.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a little tough in the beginning years. I remember 2021, I think I went to Florida like 7 times because I was just like, I can't be around this negativity all the time.
Mm.
And so Florida was kind of normal. So I would just keep going down to Florida. And then when I started having conferences, people are like, how in the world do you have people coming in from all over? Because I went into the right rooms.
That's great. No, I love to hear that. And that's true about the getting into these rooms because they do inspire you and help you grow, right? And learning from other people is key, like you said, to build that momentum and to keep going. Because a lot of us, in my experience, and a lot of the people I know, there was a point in my life where I used to blame things in my life, and that kept me stuck for a little bit until I woke up and said, "Wait, what am I doing? Right? I can't do that.
Mhm.
I can't blame other people for where I am right now. Now it's my responsibility to grow." So, how do you help entrepreneurs? Because I know a lot of people that come to you are entrepreneurs or people in careers that want to grow. Do you help them to get that mindset that you have, right? Because a lot of those people maybe didn't have those set of examples in their lives. Those parents, they didn't have the opportunity to have that mentorship that you had.
Well, they're not going to get the same mindset that I have. And I don't want them to. I want them to have the mindset that they're called to have.
Hmm.
It is different for everybody. And so I think if I'm understanding you right, it's how do you shift the
Yeah.
way that you're um, thinking based on the things that you learned when you were younger?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the most important things is to open up your mind to curiosity. We can be very stubborn. And so, especially as you get older, there's a lot less that you're willing to take in,
Mhm.
understandably so. So, I think one of the biggest things is opening up your mind to things and being curious about them. I got to a point this year where I was like, you know what? I don't think the reason that I am not married is because of the other person. I think it's because of me. And so I opened up my mind to learning about previous relationships, about learning about myself, why they worked, why they
Mhm.
didn't work. And I'm a totally different man this year. I still got things I'm working on, but it's been an exciting year learning. If I knew that, that
Mhm.
relationship probably would have worked. And so these little things, it's like, can't I can't be too hard on myself for not knowing these things when I was 24. I just have to be appreciative that I opened up my mind to learning these things. And now I do think I can be a good partner for someone. But that was something that I opened my mind to in entrepreneurship. Got to a point where it was like, hey, these people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they didn't really have money when they were younger. So how did they get to where they are? And I started watching videos on people like them. I started reading their stories, listening to their stories. And then you start to think more like that person. And so to be able to think about $1 billion business, I had to start studying a lot of very successful business owners. And so I tell people, I say, listen, in business, I think it's important to have a business coach that can help out with structure, that can give you someone to talk to, and that can keep you aligned with your goals. I do think it's important to have some sort of mentor in your life that has made a lot of money and is not a business coach, because those people can help you think a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And so I have a guy that I meet with many weeks, 3 times a week,
Mhm.
who's probably worth 100 to 500 million. I don't know exactly how much. And so he has helped me break through a lot of limiting beliefs by the things that he's been able to do in his life.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think I've helped him think bigger too, because he was one of the first people that said, "Hey, this university thing, can you tell me about it?" And ever since I told him about it, he's been curious about any little thing that he can do to help out. And then he had this spark of motivation with his business not too much longer after that, that I've been seeing him light up about the
Mm.
last 3 or 4 years.
It's amazing. I'm excited for that. I can't wait to see how it would happen. I mean, it's happening, but you know what I'm saying.
And that one question that I think a lot of people have is, okay, well, how do you get these people? Well, the business coach, you're probably going to have to pay for. Listen, you don't need to pay $10,000 for a business coach. I see a lot of these high ticketed coaches. There's plenty of coaches out there that, are affordable, that can
Mhm.
help you go in the right direction. With the mentor, understand that successful people want to help, but many of them have tried to help out so many people that haven't taken their advice that it's hard for them to just willingly want to give that help.
Oh.
So, a big thing that you will have to do if you want to gain a very wealthy mentor on your side is ask.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people just put the limiting belief right up there and not ask.
Mm.
I've spent time with the guy who owned the Houston Texans. I spent time with the guy who sold Joseph A. Banks. I've met people worth a lot of money that were high up in Coca-Cola, restaurant like chains, and one of the biggest things is like whenever I get around them, I try and be curious about how they got to where they are today. And when you can get people talking about themselves, they're a lot more likely to take interest in whatever you have to say. But I see too many people talking to people who they look up to, admire, and they just talk about themselves the whole time. So, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, what is a great question to ask someone that you want to have as a mentor? What was life like for you in the beginning days when you were starting out?
Mm. Then they'll tell the whole story. Yeah.
Simpler than you
So we're
think?
not. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. It's true. And I also like the fact that you talked about relationships because I think that's something that it's very relatable and it teaches you sometimes, most of the times, we are the problem, right?
Yeah.
We are the ones that need to figure things out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's easy to blame others instead of ourselves. And that's where growth happens.
100%. I
Mhm.
think, um, I think one of the things growing up is I wasn't really taught relationships. So I didn't know how to ask a girl out. I didn't know why I kept having almost every girl I dated at some point saying, "You need to give me more attention." It was said in different ways, but and so, it was kind of one of those things. It's like there's certain things that need to change in myself. And I'm still working. Like I wish I could say I was perfect, but I'm like the farthest thing.
Yeah, we're not. And yeah, I find myself in a similar path in regards to that because I didn't grow up with that someone that taught me about relationships, right? So the last 2 years I did hire also a relationship counselor.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was really nice to work with, her had one a woman and then a guy because I realized, okay, I think I need a man to teach me because I'm a girl and you know, a guy will know more in that regards. So it is interesting because he was able to tell me the fears in me. I was projecting some things and not even people I had relationships with. It was just dates that I would go and it was interesting to learn. So
Okay, would you mind sharing an example of something you learned?
Well, there are a bunch of different things. For me, I think I shared this before on my keynote speech, right?
Mhm.
Whenever I would go on dates and now if I will be talking to these guys for, I don't know, a month or two, and it was a lot, I'll get anxious. Let's say if they didn't answer me, or like you kind of know if someone's interested in you or not. But I used to care so much about their attention again. So it brought me back to why was I feeling this feeling of not getting attention? Why was I letting that affect me? And he asked me questions that brought me back to my childhood because I was feeling the same anxiety I was feeling every time I felt like they were not giving me attention. It was something I'd experienced as a child. And I didn't know where that was coming from. Alone, without a counselor, I didn't make the connection. But with him, asking me questions or saying, when do you feel the same thing? What did that feeling remind you of? So it brought me back to those moments in my childhood where, my mom and my dad are separated. So there were times that I felt that separation too, or moving here to the States when I felt that my mom was busy working and I felt that maybe she was abandoning me, but she was not abandoning me. She was working, right, for my best.
Mhm.
So I didn't realize how that had to do with that.
Mhm.
So it's something I learned.
Well, one thing I learned similar to that is that a lot of the way you look at life is based on your first 7 years of
Hmm.
life.
Yeah.
And when my coach started breaking down 0 to 7, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're right." And, I think that's when I had a lot of the breakthroughs
Hmm.
was when we kinda went back into the childhood and it really started to help me understand why, certain things.
Yeah. It's so funny, right? How
Yeah.
it shapes your life as an adult. You don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I loved, and I actually put this in a comedy skit, is he talked about the 4 different types of men. And he said there's a boy, a guy, a man, and then a gentleman. So the boy is kind of like the person who lives in his mom's basement,
Mhm.
eats Cheetos,
Yeah.
plays Call of Duty for days. And, he's got bad habits, either gambling, eating, drinking, just anything to numb the pain. That's what a boy will do, right? And then the guy is like kind of 50-50 with decision making. And, he's kind of figuring things out, maybe has a couple roommates. And I realized that the 50-50 person was me. And I realized that women like men who lead.
Mhm.
And so when I was 50-50, like, for example, a date, what do you want to do is one of the worst things that I learned I could ask.
I know.
Versus saying, "Hey, I want to see you this weekend. I was thinking we can go here. How do you feel about that?" And since I shifted to more of that approach, it just made it so much easier to date women. You know what I
It
mean?
works. Yeah.
And so that was one thing I was never taught that until this year. So I can't blame myself,
Yeah.
for things I didn't know. I'm just grateful to know them now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the man, he leads, he plans, he protects, and so the man takes care of his body so he can be there for his woman long term. The man sees something broken around the house, whether he fixes it or not, he takes the initiative for it to get fixed before, you know, the woman even notices. And so that's something that excites me. Like it excites me to be that man because I see the polarity in relationships. Like for example, I learned that men like we can have our apartment be a mess and it just like we don't even think about it. Like it's not even something that crosses our mind versus women many of them, it's like got to be clean. There's a vision behind it.
Yeah.
I have this new joke that and you heard it. I haven't put it in a special yet about home goods. And it's just basically
That was
talking.
funny.
Yeah. And just basically talking about the polarity of how relationships work. And one of my favorite hobbies is to spend time around couples and to see how different they are and understand why that their differences make it work.
Funny. That's so true about the leading part. And that's something I had to work on too with my counselor because I remember going on this date with this guy and then I suggested first the place and what to do. And I told my counselor, he said, no, you have to wait for him to do it because he's the one to lead. And I said, well, I didn't feel like I was leading. And I guess I also learned about myself there because I'm very independent on what I do. So I'm used to doing everything and saying time and date and planning things for myself. So without realizing I was doing that with him. And now I'm like, okay, I have to wait for the guy to do it for me.
Yeah. I had an example probably about a month ago where I asked a girl out and I could only meet at one place because I was at an event. And so it just wouldn't have really worked out if we had to go somewhere else. And so she's like, this is like right before, was 2 hours before. She's like, oh, could we actually meet at this place? I really wanted to try one of their pieces of food there.
Mm.
And I said, I can't meet there, but I can still meet you where we sat at this time. And she said, okay, I'll meet you there. And, it was just kind of one of those things. I would have never thought that that was something that I needed to do. Cause in the past I would have said, oh, okay, let me see if I can figure out how to do that. And I
Mhm.
probably would have tried to make that work.
Yeah.
And but it's an important, like the dynamic, like, and there's certain things the lady needs to lead with too.
Mhm.
There's also that side of things. But that was a big learning experience for me. And then just to see how she accepted it and we had that was probably the longest conversation I had with someone. We talked for like 2.5 hours, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of one of those things that it just, I would have never even thought that,
Mhm.
until I learned how important it is to lead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was a breakthrough. And then the gentleman's basically like, and when he walks into the room, the plants stand up.
Mm.
It's just like got that
Got
presence,
that.
you know what I mean? And so the gentleman kind of forms when he's around his woman.
Yeah.
But so the man is where most single men need to try and be. And when you could become a man, it's hard to be single for very long
Mhm.
because you start to understand what a woman wants. Now, there's also the four different types of women, and this has really helped me understand a lot because once I started to understand myself, he's like, hey, you still have to understand the women's side. So we don't have to get into that unless you want to, but
This
that was
podcast,
that whole dynamic there.
personal development,
Yeah.
it's everything, right? You
Mm.
need to grow in every area of your life. Once you start learning and growing in one area, then you realize, wait, I need to also learn these things.
Yeah.
Mm.
The four different types of women are the girl, the, the, the chick, the girl, the grounded woman, and then the lady, right?
Mhm.
And my favorite part about the grounded woman is she's not looking for attention, she's looking for alignment. And so one of the things me and my relationship coach talk about quite a bit is a grounded woman doesn't worry about Photoshop photos on Instagram. A grounded woman doesn't feel like she needs to be half naked in pictures and put her butt out on an Instagram post to get a
Mhm.
man's attention. A grounded woman, she doesn't need social media to prove her value, her worthiness. And, that's what I love about grounded women is like attention is something that they want from their man and their family and from doing the right things,
Yeah.
you know? And so anytime someone has too much Botox, anytime someone has very Photoshop pictures, in my mind, that's a red
Red
flag,
flag.
even work done to their body, but people can do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, in my mind, in my relationship coach mind, it shows a lot of insecurity, and
Mm-hmm.
also it makes you think that no matter how much attention you give that person, it will never be enough.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, we're getting relationship lessons today too.
Well, I'm not in it. I'm just sharing my experiences
No,
from
it's great.
what I've learned,
Yeah.
and you know,
Yeah. No, I like that. I like this topic too. It's interesting because we're all in that journey, a lot of us. So
yeah.
it's important to learn those little things that might not seem important, but they are. So yeah. And actually my question, one of my last question was because we spoke about identity and all of that, right? Without the titles and without everything that you're doing, who is Brandon Gaydorus? Because a lot of us know you because of what you do and what you're trying to get to, what you just share. Yeah.
Can you tell me who Esther is first, so I can hear an example of like kind
Okay.
of where your
So,
head's at with that question?
yeah. So Esther loves her family. I love God first is something very important in my life. And I want to share that with words or with actions. I love my family. I love myself. I'm growing into the version that I think God wants me to be during this season and through my life. Yeah.
I like it. So I think Brandon Gaydorus is a guy who wants to grow together with as many people as possible and make this world a better place.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
I have this when I was younger, I heard this rule. It's called the 150 people funeral test. And the rule or the concept behind it is that when you pass away, if over 150 people show up to your funeral, then you probably made a pretty good impact on people's lives. And so when Muhammad Ali died, I just remember seeing the streets just filled with people just like, you know, thanking him for what he did while he was on this earth. And so that I think is a big vision that I have is like when I die someday, I just want people to be at that funeral and be able to share great memories of things that they did in their life because maybe they heard something from me, or maybe they came to my event and connected with someone,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. Maybe they were inspired to go after their dream because of something, that I inspired them by because they listened to this podcast or something like that. And so, yeah, Brandon Gaydorus is a guy who wants to grow together with as many people as possible so that when I do pass away, people say, hey, this dude made this world a better place than when he got
Mm,
here.
that's amazing. Yeah, I think people will definitely say that. I don't know how I joined you and learned about you, I think through Monica, but it's been a great experience when I said, where was I this whole time? I lived in Stanford for so long and in Connecticut, but it's been amazing to see everything that you're doing and being part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I think one of the coolest parts about Warm Heart Life is experiences like this. You asked me earlier, "Hey, do you like my cookies?" And I'm like, "No, I don't like them. I love your cookies." And after this, I'm gonna eat your cookies, one, two, whatever is in there, and I'm gonna enjoy it. And I'm gonna be so proud that I'm having a cookie from someone who's a friend of mine, someone who's gone through my speaker school, and someone who has a vision for something great. And so when I eat that cookie, it makes me feel like I'm a part of something special.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And I did bring him cookies. So if you guys don't know, I make cookies and my cookies business name is called Mary's Alfajores. They're melt in your mouth cookies. So here's your little
Oh, thank you.
box. I made a chocolate cover one and then another one. You
That's
can have it later with during this snowy day. It's just a perfect day to have a cookie, I think, with hot
mhm.
cocoa if you like hot cocoa. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Is there a last word of encouragement or advice that you will give someone listening that wants to do great things?
Sure. I wrote this poem when I was younger. It's the shortest poem I probably ever wrote, but probably the most impactful poem that I'll ever write. It's called Becoming Great. And it goes, I thought it was good until I saw great. It was then when I understood what achieving my dreams would take.
Mm.
And the reason I'm sharing that as one last thing is anytime you think you're really good at something, try and get around someone who's better, and you're going to start to understand the little things that you can do to get better. And you'll have this spark of motivation
Yeah.
that just lights you up to
Mhm.
start doing the next things that you need to do to be able to get better.
Okay, that's true. And when can they find you? Where can they learn more about you?
Well, luckily, this beautiful last name of mine, I've never seen with anybody else. So all my social media is my first name and then last name. And so
Mhm.
that's probably the best way to get in contact. My phone number is 607-348-61. You can call me or text me at that, and I look forward to connecting.
Yeah, I want you to share with them about the speaker schools that you have going on and specifically what they are.
Yeah, so we got two speaker schools coming up, one in January in Stamford,
Mhm.
Connecticut, which you'll be at.
Yeah.
That is on January 23rd and 24th. And that's actually the 4-year speaker school anniversary. So the January one is always a special one because we always have a celebration at the end. I've
Mhm.
never been in a 4-year relationship. So when me and Carl celebrate every year the speaker school anniversary, we kind of look at each other like, damn, I can't believe this has worked this long.
That's funny.
And so, yeah. And then we have one in Miami Beach on March 20th and 21st.
Okay.
And so the speaker school is a 2-day mastermind, and we do a 3-week build up, 1 hour a week for 3 weeks leading up to that. So that way momentum is created. Everybody has homework assignments so they can start understanding how to structure a story, understand how to improve their tone. And so in the 2 days, we can get them speaking a lot. So everybody gives a keynote, everybody does improv, everybody's going to get a mini podcast interview. So we make it a lot of fun. And that, and I think in speaking, if you're not speaking, it's hard to retain the knowledge. So the thing about our speaker school is very hands-on. You're speaking a lot.
Yeah, it's fun. It challenges you for the best. Yeah. You come out of there a new person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's great. Well, I'm excited for the speaker school and I'm excited for everything that's going to happen this year with you and with Warm Heart Life. And I'm very excited for everybody to listen to this podcast. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks
Sure.
for
Thank you
the
for the
cookies.
cookies. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to this episode. And if you are ready to work in your speech or keep learning and surrounding yourself with other people that are also growing in their career, their lives, just make sure to follow Brandon and follow me, and you will see the amazing people that we're surrounded by and that you can learn through every day of your life. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you on the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, follow on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.